As we can see here is that I mixed the salt and the dirt, and I'm going to mix it. And behind the camera I have a strainer ready. I do not have a coffee filter, but this will do. So after a few minutes, you can see here we have still our mucky salt water, and we're gonna strain it through a second time, create a much clearer solution. As you can see, that it's getting a little more clear. So we're gonna go ahead and continue straining it. So it's the third time, you can see it's getting a little more clearer. On the fourth try, let's see if it gets more clear. As you can see, the little properties from the dirt is being washed away. As you can see that the cloth is now strained, everything's passed over, which means all of the dirt trapped in here is now clear. Although you can see some dirt things, but that's okay. We can clear that off through boiling water or after the fourth try. The fourth try, we're gonna strain this again. And as we can see here is that it's getting pretty much clearer. It's getting very clear, and it just goes straight through. As you can see, there's dirt molecules, and the bottom is getting clearer and clearer. So we're gonna have to boil this until it becomes a point where the salt water has become evaporated, and we can fully strain the salt. I missed it, but as you can see, the dirt has immensely evaporated. All that dirt you see has immensely evaporated and turned into salt. Turned into pure salt. As you can see, all of the dirt is now turning into evaporation, which is creating a consistency which is now salt. We're turning this dirt back into salt as a kind of a separation. It's not going to be the same one as before, but the salt water is going to be turned back straight into salt. And as you can see here, all these dirt molecules are starting to evaporate. As you can see here around the rims, oh my gosh. As you can see here around the rims that there's salts. Sorry for the fog. We have to put this on medium high heat, because this is where the boiling point is for 5 milligrams of water, salt, dirt water. And from here you are going to just let it run like this until it becomes fully crystallized. You're gonna not want to mix it. You're gonna leave it like this. Every once in a while going to have to mix it. And the byproduct should go around like creating salt. As you can see here that I have pushed a mark, and you can see salt going back on here and clear on this area. As you can see, salt is starting to form. So we're gonna turn this mucky brown water back into salt. And as you can see, the salt has formed. We have now created salt water back into salt, and as you can see, as it has now turned into salt, you're gonna want to turn this off. Let it rest. As you can see, you're gonna want to do this safely because the salt does jump around. And as you can see, the salt water has turned back into salt. which is a great success. That's a lot of salt, so this is probably related to water. And as you can see, it's now. The second one is that we're gonna dissolve salt from tajin. As you can see, that once you pour the cold water into here, you can see parts of the chili flakes rising up, but there's still some sugar here at the bottom, as you can see. So we're gonna go ahead and stir that. We're gonna stir that for about 3 whole minutes. And with this, we're gonna recover the sugar from this portion over here. As you can see, is that there's still bits of sugar there. We're gonna want all of that completely dissolved. So we're gonna keep stirring it for around a minute before we go ahead and move on with the draining. As you can see, sugar is still there. You're gonna want it completely dissolved. Also can change stirring patterns if the sugar does not want to dissolve. As you can see here, the sugar is dissolving. We're gonna go ahead and mix it for a couple of minutes more. As you can see here, the sugar has somewhat dissolved. So we're gonna go ahead and mix to the next section, which is just draining this. As you can see here, there's tajin floating. Those are chili flakes and thymes and chili skins, such as chili peppers, which you can see are floating around. And you are gonna want to separate them. As you can see, is that I have not fully separate them, but as you can see here, is that the water here is turning to orange, and the water is very much clearer than the one with the dirt, as there's dirt molecules in there. Further separating them, as further separations, it creates a soluble of clearness. And for the next few steps, we're gonna clean this out, replace it until this is done. So we're gonna go ahead and come back and do this. So here we are, step 2 with this process is that we just let it sit there, and it is now dissolving while separating the tajin pieces with the water. And as you can see, so you see no particles are falling into here, which is a good sign. As you're gonna completely try to strain this without it falling through the edges and through the sides. And as you can see, is that there's finally our tajin sugar water. Our next step is to process it with alcohol, such as separating the solution of salt and sugar that was in a tajin to revive back the sugar. What is, you're gonna add very little bit of alcohol, especially ethanol alcohol, but I'm Mexican, so I only have tequila, which is very much clear, almost clear like, but you're gonna, this is 100% blue agave, you're gonna have to put very little. So, oh my gosh. Look around that much. And you're gonna go ahead and stir that and put it in the pot for the water to completely dissolve and to return it back to sugar, because the alcohol is going to drive out the salt, leaving in the sugar, which will retain the sugar, giving it back its original state. As you can see here, is that I cannot completely remove the orange dye as it was in a tajin, as it was chili peppers. So we're only going to be left with a sweet and sour taste of sugar powder or sugar crystals. As tajin for me as a Mexican is very much sour and delightful, as for another person it can be spicy. You can see here that there's a form of sugar that's been dissolved. As after you mix the alcohol and with the sugar water, it becomes to a state. So we're gonna be here doing this, and we're gonna completely stir it until it becomes crystal or it becomes a syrup type. As you can guess, we can smell the alcohol, and you can smell the alcohol very much burning. As you can see here, the alcohol. As you can see, the alcohol is very much burning, and we're gonna essentially deprive the alcohol, evaporating the salt, as the salt carries with alcohol as it evaporates, creating the syrup, leaving the sugar behind. As you can see here, is that it's now boiling. Soon enough, we're going to be left with the sugar-like consistency, where it's going to be a syrup-like or crystal-like sugar. We're going to be hope that it does not burn. So the sugar does not burn at all. So in this state, you're gonna mix it for a little bit before leaving it alone. So from here, you're gonna want to mix it for around 5 minutes before leaving it alone. Well, from what I've noticed, that the smell of alcohol has evaporated, so it's now left the sugar and completely dissolving the salt, where the salt has now evaporated and the sugar is thick with the consistency of the water, creating a syrup-like form. If the salt did not evaporate with the alcohol, it will turn to crystal-like formations. So for this one, we just hope it turns to syrup, because if it turns to syrup, you know where the salt. To prevent this from burning, you are going to want this to cool down for a little bit before returning it. By the way, this is red. I don't know why on the camera it's showing purple, but the stove is completely red, by the way. And as you can see here, it's completely cooled down. And you can see one of the rock crystals is starting to form. And you're gonna put it right back and completely dissolving it from back to back. You're gonna do that until a syrup like forms, And don't worry the smell. It smells like a Mexican candy that you find in Mexico, called borrachinos, where it's candy made with alcohol, which you do not get drunk by the way. This candy is for 5 years and older, by the way. So we're gonna sit until a syrup consistency.